Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. And tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. It's surprise Richard night. I don't know what we're doing, but the guys do. Steve does and Mac does. But Mac, I guess it's on you.
Okay. Well, we thought that we'd maybe to pull our head out of the Bible for a week. And of course, if we circle back there for reference and context, that's okay too. But we thought, one of the things that Richard circles back to sometimes is that these ideas, this framework, can be applied to all of the ancient wisdom traditions, not just the Old Testament or the New Testament in the Bible, but also the Quran and the Vedas, and presumably even documents and texts that we're not aware of anymore, or don't have access to anymore, at least not in general. We were discussing it a little bit before the show started, and the Voynich manuscript came up, and that's one of those things that, like, at least it appears to be a very deep mystery. So I thought that it would be fun to sort of talk about something that we all have some familiarity with. Maybe we're not as personally invested in it as Christianity might be, or as personally affected by it, in Steve's case, maybe. And, I don't want to project, but it's definitely a very personal thing for me, Christianity, that is, in the Bible. So I thought maybe we could look at Greek mythology, and specifically the mythology and the story of Prometheus, and maybe in general the Titans, and the generations between the original gods and then Zeus, and then Prometheus's role in that whole drama. And then the very interesting symbolism of Prometheus chained to a rock with unbreakable chains, having his liver devoured every day. I think that there's something, definitely something to pick apart there. So I don't know where to start, really. Let's find a question, Steve. Let's kind of dive in here. Maybe we could give an outline of the story.
Of course, with the Greek myths, there are always multiple variations of every story. So it's hard to even pick one. But with the Promethean legend, there was a time when, because Prometheus was thought to have, what his name sort of means was foreknowledge, or forethought.
Right. And
he was considered perceptive and insightful. And it was time to sacrifice a bull at the temple of Zeus. And the issue comes up, of course, is that whenever you sacrifice animals at a temple, whether it was the Jewish temple that we're familiar with, or the Greek pantheon, you sacrificed it, and some went to the gods, and some you partook in a form of communion. And of course, communion is familiar to Catholics as well. And so these sort of issues come up. But in the case of this legend, the locals wanted the meat from the bull sacrifice. And of course, the gods don't want to be shortchanged either. So because there was said to be power in the bones, there was one bag of sacrifice of the bull's parts that showed the bones, whereas the one for the humans, the bag had a stomach on top, which was considered the worst part of the beast to enjoy. But underneath it was the delicious meats. So Prometheus presented these. Zeus takes the bones, which are said to possess power, and but then discovers there's no meat on the bone, and the locals get to enjoy after they toss away the stomach. And Zeus realizes he's been tricked. Zeus is angry about it, and hauls Prometheus off to that famous rock where he's chained, and I think it's a griffin. I can't remember what mythological beast it is, but it was important to the story. Yeah. would come
it was
down.
Zeus's eagle. It was a giant eagle, like super crazy big eagle, which has to indicate the astrology, I think there of Equus.
Hey, that didn't even occur to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Also, I think you skipped the fire part, because what happened was Zeus said, okay, well, if they're going to have the good part of the meat, then they're going to have to eat it raw.
Yes.
And he took the fire away from humanity, which Prometheus went and got back, and he used a fennel stalk to hold the embers of the eternal fire from Olympus and bring it back to the earth, to humanity. And I think
Thank you,
that's
Mac. I missed
really,
the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about everything except the part that really matters.
Well, I don't know. I think honestly we could focus on the whole chained up to a rock part, and just pick that apart. I think there's a lot right there.
Well, first, I like liver. I'm the only one I know that likes liver and onions. There's a thing, I looked it up, just curious, like, why the liver? And it turns out that the liver was thought by the Greeks to be the seat of passion or something, and of emotion. And because Prometheus had acted rashly, I think he was punished by having that part of himself removed every day. So it was supposed to be a fitting punishment, I think. Oh, someone's got the Wikipedia. What does that say?
I thought of the whole liver part of it as just exemplary of massive suffering, because I've been unfortunately socked in the liver before, and it is exquisite pain. It doesn't take much of a blow either, and to imagine like a bird tearing apart at that area, there must be a huge nerve bundle right there. I mean, because it's like it dropped me. Like I didn't feel like I could stand up. So I don't know.
Well,
I've always thought about
where
it.
You stab someone. Richard could help it, like in the military, in combat training. I think if you stab someone from behind, you're supposed to slice through the liver, right? Because it causes them to bleed out.
Yeah, the liver is one of those things. It's very delicate. The outside sac of it is very delicate, and there's almost no fixing it.
What got me thinking about what does the liver represent? Because I thought because of this setup to this myth, that it must have been like, why the liver? Why not one of the kidneys, or the entrails?
Yeah,
but it's specifically the liver, and that's where I looked up that
How much confidence you put in the idea that liver is emotion?
Limited, because I did this research in quotes on the internet, and there's a problem, as we know, because people do research on the internet and then say that vaccines have killer robots in them. So we always have to. A lot of what I read about Prometheus was from Robert Graves' 2-volume set, The Greek Myths. And there's, of course, a lot to say about Prometheus in those volumes.
Mm-hmm. So Robert Smith didn't have anything to say about the liver?
Robert Graves. No, well, he mentioned it.
Sorry.
But he didn't say... No, it's okay. Robert Graves didn't say, well, the liver was obviously the seat of emotion, and that's why... the seat of passion, and that's why Zeus had it torn out of him. But there is an interesting thing about how Prometheus is allowed to leave, which often doesn't get told.
And what's that?
Well, at one point, Zeus is reminded, he becomes kind of ashamed of these eternal punishments he's created, but there's something in his character where he doesn't want to sort of go back, and fix what he's done, which would mean acknowledging you've made a mistake. And someone, I can't remember who, reminds Zeus that it was Prometheus who warned him not to have a child with the nymph Thetis, Thetis, I think it is. And because it was foretold, or at least Prometheus could see it, that the son she would bear would overthrow the father. And so Zeus, if he had done so, would have killed himself essentially by having a son with her. And I think the son she eventually had became Achilles. I'm trying to remember now.
Hercules.
But that's Hercules, maybe? Is it Hercules? Okay.
Hercules is the one that finally freed Prometheus, I think.
Okay. Well, there you go. At any rate, so Zeus allows him to leave, and he's freed from his chains. And because he is immortal through a bargain he made, there was an immortal who wanted to die because he'd been terribly injured and in terrible pain. So Zeus allowed him to swap Prometheus's mortality for this creature's immortality. And so Prometheus is now an immortal, even though he's just a Titan.
I thought the Titans possessed immortality. Anyway,
they do?
I don't know, but I guess I don't know why I don't have that as a fresh information, but that's an impression that I had. That they're sealed up in Tartarus, I think.
Yeah, the gods defeated them and cast them down.
Yeah.
Which sounds a lot like casting down the rebel angels.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure does.
Oh, is Richard grinding his teeth there? I can't see.
I'm gonna read this section just as soon as you guys feel like it's a good time to do it.
Go for it.
I'm gonna read it kind of quickly though.
Okay.
In Greek mythology, Prometheus, an ancient Greek, I can't pronounce that, possibly meaning forethought, is a titan of god of fire. Prometheus is best known for defying the gods by stealing fire from them giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and more generally civilization.
Right.
In some versions of the myth, he is also credited with the creation of humanity from clay. Prometheus is known for his intelligence and for being a champion of humankind, and is also generally seen as the author of human arts and sciences. He is sometimes presented as the father of the Deucalion. I have no idea what that means. The hero of the flood story. Okay, the hero of the flood story. The punishment of Prometheus as a consequence of the theft of fire and giving it to humans is a popular subject of both ancient and modern culture. Zeus, king of the Olympian gods, sentenced Prometheus to eternal torment for his transgression. Prometheus was bound to a rock, and an eagle, the emblem of Zeus, was sent to eat his liver. In ancient Greece, the liver was often thought to be the seat of human emotions. His liver would then grow back overnight, only to be eaten again the next morning, the next day in an ongoing cycle. According to several major versions of the myth, most notably that of Hesiod, Prometheus was eventually freed by the hero Heracles. In yet more symbolism, the struggle of Prometheus is located by some at Mount Elbrus or at Mount Kazbek. I'd like to know what those words mean. Two volcanic here you go. Promontories in the Caucasus Mountains, beyond which for the ancient Greeks lay the realm of the Barbari. That was a weird sentence. The barbarians.
Yeah, the ancient Greeks thought that the barbarians, when they spoke, just said ba, 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 ba over and over again.
Yeah, that is, they couldn't understand them.
Yes.
So a lot like they were all speaking in tongues, according to those folks. In another myth, Prometheus establishes the form of animal sacrifice practice in ancient Greek religion. Evidence of a cult to Prometheus himself is not widespread. He was a focus of religious activity mainly in Athens, where he was linked to Athena and Hephaestus, who were the Greek deities of creative skills and technology. The Western classical tradition, Prometheus became a figure who represented human striving, particularly the quest for scientific knowledge and the risk of overreaching or unintended consequences.
Hmm.
In particular, he was regarded in the Romantic era as embodying the lone genius whose efforts to improve human existence could only result in tragedy. Mary Shelley, for instance, gave the modern Prometheus as a subtitle to her novel Frankenstein.
Right.
Good enough?
Mm.
Okay, so that
Sounds
just
good.
confirmed everything you guys just said, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, aren't we good, Mac?
High
You
five.
guys were
awesome.
pretty thorough.
Okay. But in terms of encouragement, like there's a whole bunch. Richard mentioned the flood myths. There's a whole bunch Prometheus has to do with that, and strangely, Atlas, the god who eventually ends up holding up the earth,
Right.
was a part of Atlantis. And Zeus gets extremely angry over something. I can't remember what.
We're going
and
to have to
causes
stop
the
talking
flood.
about unrelated stories. I'm sorry, Steve.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
We could
so
go
yeah,
on.
there's myths attached to myths attached to myths.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Or actually religious stories attached to religious stories. I think calling them all, if you call them all myths, that's fine, including Christianity. But if you're going to call one genuine, you have to call them all genuine, in my opinion. Okay, so a few points right off the bat from definitions from within the Bible. It isn't at the point of what I'm doing here. The giver of rest is Noah. And that description, the description of Noah, the one who gives rest, the one who brings people out of the earth, is the same character name as the one who does the drawing out, or Moses. And actually, in that group, I can also put, let's see, who else? Joshua, Melchizedek, and a couple others. The Father, and all those kinds of terms, meaning the one who's in charge of end times. So we've got Prometheus, who is having his liver eaten, which is the seat of, in the Greek thought, the seat of emotions. Having your liver or your emotions eaten by this is killing me, by Zeus, would make you an emotionless creature. And I'm just gonna spit it out right here. And God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So it's actually an Elohim, a set of powerful but covetous gods who took clay or simple material, to any piece of it too small for you to see, and created the first man and or Adam. And no, I don't think the people writing Christianity saw this as the same thing. I'm sorry, I just don't, but I certainly do. So what you actually have is an evil God creating man. It is intelligent and inspiring. However, it doesn't have emotions. And of course, it is the father of the one who is in charge in the flood narrative. Same thing in the Bible.
Richard, was it you who told us that Adam was made out of clay, not earth, or that Adam, the name means clay?
The name means red in the face, like the red clay of the ground.
Ah, okay, because this business about... Sorry, you know what? I'm knocking you off track
No, it's okay. No, you
because I
won't.
interrupted you.
No,
But
you won't.
it's there's this interesting thing where in the Greek myths, Prometheus made men out of clay. We have Adam being like clay, and then we have the golem in the Old Testament, I think, who is also made out of clay, and
What
the
golem?
priest breathed life into him.
Who?
The
I don't think that's in the Old Testament.
Oh, is it
That's
in the?
that's going
It's
to
like
be an
the Zohar.
apocryphal book. That's in an apocryphal book. That's not actually in the Bible.
Okay. Well, you know
Okay.
what? You're probably right, but it is part of Jewish tradition. But
It
That's
is.
true.
It is part of Jewish tradition. Yes.
I'll look that up. Well, sorry, Richard. Can you get us back to where we're supposed to be?
I have no idea where we are. No, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Okay. So, giving inspiration after having created man is also in the story of the Garden of Eden, where the serpent, thought of as Satan, is the inspiration for woman to look out and discover. So there's a repeating theme. That it's an emotionless but intelligent thing that created man. That's a consistent theme. That it's a titan. That is, it's a major thing. It's not one of the demigods or lesser gods. That's a consistent thing with Satan. What other details were in the story? What did I miss there? That Zeus overpowers him. There's a consistent theme.
That he's eventually freed.
That he's eventually freed. The end of the book of Revelation, after 1,000 years of being trapped, he's let loose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so I'm going to say it's Satan.
Sorry, so you're saying it's Satan?
I'm saying it's the creator of mankind, Satan.
Oh. That's a bummer. You're really bumming me out, Richard.
I'm like that sometimes.
That's not the first time I've heard that association, actually.
Really?
From Satanists. Yeah, I've heard people who revere Satan compare him to Prometheus, or say that the myths map onto each other. Yeah, I have.
Huh.
The whole bringer of light thing, because Lucifer and bringer of light, and then Prometheus literally brings the light.
But the idea of conflating Lucifer and Satan is impossible in the Bible. Because if you accept an A theory of time, and the Bible seems to be written in an A theory of time, yes?
I don't know what that means. A theory?
Okay. B theory of time says something like there is no linear time, but blocks of experience.
Oh.
Which means there is no beginning and no end, just an experience of a time period. And that block was an experience of that being, but there is no linear time. And without social communication, we would be like dogs, and we'd have no concept of time either. We'd only have our own individual block of time.
I see. Okay.
And it gets more scientific than that. I don't understand the science and why they say that is most likely true. But it seems to me that a linear time sequence, A, B, C, D, E, happens in the Bible.
Yes.
Okay, so if we accept a theory of time in a linear fashion by a set of causes and effects, and we have Lucifer falling from heaven, falling because of women. And yes, his name in a different language is Azazel or Azazel. That does mean Lucifer. And he is mentioned in the book of Enoch as the leader of the fallen ones, who are angels, asking for the forgiveness from Yahweh, asking Enoch to pray for them. And God says they'll have no forgiveness. They knew the truth. They should be praying for you. So it says that they're angels. It's pretty well verified. It works with the Bible as well, and Enoch is mentioned prominently in the Bible himself. Okay, so then you have Lucifer falling in chapter 6 of the book of Genesis. That is, the failure of Lucifer is in chapter 6 of the book of Genesis. Well, you should have something in your brain, even in a young Earth creation of 6,000 years. You should still have a good 1,000 to 1,500 years between the Garden of Eden and the fall of the angel Lucifer. So what happened there? He went back in time to be Satan in the garden. Does that make sense? Oh no. Well, wait a minute. There's another way. How about if he became good after he was Satan, and and went into heaven because he was good. God renamed him Lucifer, but then he couldn't keep the charade, so he became evil again and fell with the. God's going to fall for that crap, and no evil thing can enter heaven is a steadfast rule. So I don't think there's a way without Satan being a time traveler to make Lucifer Satan. And that's not even getting into the logic of how an archangel could fall.
Yes, which is a very weird part of the story. Having these beings created by God that are angelic and you would think perfect. And then they fall by God knows how many thousands of and becoming demons.
Yeah, that's part of the Christian doctrine that they become demons. What the Bible actually says is that they're in the basement of heaven, awaiting the finish of their sentencing. They're imprisoned.
So, it's like they're in jail, waiting for their sentence that would put them in prison.
Right, and it says that sentence will be carried out at the end of this planet.
Do you think everyone's going to be forgiven at the very end?
Not them.
Not them, eh?
They're going to die.
It's going to be toast.
Which isn't the same as not forgiveness. It's just not forgiveness of flesh. It seems interesting to me. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff. You guys probably know that. It seems interesting to me that it's part of the human psyche that if you encounter something horrible enough, your brain will form a disconnect and you will not be able to remember that experience. You know, I cannot think of a more slow, painful, laborious, gnashing of teeth, gnawing of tongues death than watching a lava flow come at you and you've got nowhere left to go. The extreme heat, the mental torture, fighting it for as long as you can because you can't help but fight. A human being cannot make themselves do a nosedive into a pit of lava. You just can't make yourself do it.
Right.
You will try to survive.
There is a weird thing is that if you threw a human being into lava, they might, from the force of their fall, go beneath the lava at first, but they would immediately pop up because they're not as dense as lava, and they would basically burn on the surface of it. Yeah,
that's right.
It's really disgusting, actually, and horrible.
So imagine like you're trying to crawl up rocks and stuff, and try to get to the tops of mountains while the earth is melting around you. Try to imagine that.
Right.
But eventually the mountain melts too, and might roll over or anything else, because everything under it that was solid isn't anymore. And you have no choice. Like, it would be so slow and so painful that you might find yourself, unable to retract your feet any further, and they're being burnt, but you're trying to save your head.
I can't help but think of a super volcano when you describe that.
It says the oceans are going to be removed. That would cause an unstoppable melting of the crust. It would all become magma all over the whole planet. And it says in no uncertain terms, no island can be found. Every mountain will melt like wax. There'll be no more seas. I mean, it says it quite directly in the text.
This is where refuge and not believing the Bible.
I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever, actually, whether you believe it or not. You don't have to think too hard about it if you think it's not true.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not good scholarship on my part. I'm not much of a scholar, truth be told. I just like to read stuff.
Well, as long as you're not claiming to be knowledgeable about the Bible, and you don't, and you're not knowledgeable about the Bible, and you know more than a lot of folks I've met, and you're honest about all those things, that's all perfectly. Now, if you say, "Oh, I'm a great critique," I give great critique of the Bible, and you haven't read it, from the Greek definitions, then you're just intellectually lazy and a liar. But you're not doing that.
No, and also I'm not lazy. I'm just really sleepy, which is an entirely different thing. Let me tell you.
Different thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so I wanted to wrap up that idea before we move on there.
Yeah, keep going.
It seems to me a lava flow is a good reset button for a human memory. That was it. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you circled back to that, because that mechanism is really fascinating to me within the human mind, about deleting negative or traumatic ideas or experiences. Like the experience of birth, people say, is inaccessible to us because it's so traumatic, or we probably all have memories of events that we just can't clearly recall, that are associated with some kind of trauma, or sometimes for me it's the couple of nights ago. So, and I mean, honestly, and I look back and I can't really picture exactly what happened. So it's definitely, that's a very real thing, and it's interesting to think about it as sort of an exploitable mechanism, instead of something negative and problematic. I spend a lot of time trying to access those memories, actually. So, but
so
maybe
from
I should.
What I understand, Michael, the king over the bottomless pit, the jailer, takes care of that little task. Him and his guys, not him necessarily by himself, takes care of that little task of putting the fallen and 1/3 of his crew, and it's only 1/3 of his crew, not 1/3 of all angels. That's nowhere. Christians say that a lot, but it's nowhere. Unless they mean stars in the sky, which they can. Oh boy, that's a mess. Anyway, going back to Lucifer and his fallen and their punishment are to be thrown in the pit of hell. That is an actual. In the Book of Enoch, they describe it as a mechanical thing that falls down from heaven at a natural rate of fall. And apparently it's got like an energy field around it, like lightning dances all over it, is what Enoch says. And it'll vaporize any material that it touches. So it's like ionizing the air as it falls. And then when it hits the ground, it immediately falls into the ground without slowing down. And dust or smoke comes out of the hole that it's making, like a furnace is burning, like a really big furnace. And that makes sense with that kind of heat and dismembering the particulates of whatever solid object, and that needing to expand because now you have Brownian gas refraction and stuff. It would pour out like a big furnace, like of super heat, which is what he describes. And then Enoch, an angel flies him down into the pit, because they built one, they dug one for him just to show him what it was, so he could write about it. Not that the oceans are being removed at that time. They're not. They just gave him an example pit. And he goes down, and there's like 2 other angels down in there with him, and they're talking about something. And Enoch walks over, up the slope and to the wall, and he feels the wall and how smooth it is. And he inquires, "How'd you guys make it so smooth? It's like bread dough." And the angel is always like, you could tell Enoch's an idiot. According to this angel, the angel's like, "Why are you interested in a grave? This is just a grave. That's all this is."
That sounds like a bit of comedy in the middle of, like, a little bit of comic relief.
There is, and it's about 3 or 4 times during the whole book, actually.
Interesting. Also, you mentioned lightning, the hell being surrounded by lightning, and I'm reminded.
No, not hell surrounded by lightning. The thing that causes the pit of hell is surrounded by lightning.
Oh, okay. Well, volcanoes, as they erupt, often you see lightning charges going off which sort of completes the comparison.
It does.
There is
It
one.
does. I thought we were, you know what I suspected we were going to do? I thought we were going to do Vulcan.
Oh,
Oh. Well, it's funny you should mention it. In the Greek myths, the section on Prometheus is Hephaestus and Prometheus. Prometheus doesn't just steal fire, but he also teaches humans all sorts of ways of, say, smelting and this and that, and a million different little tricks and tips to civilization. And
well, now he sounds like Lucifer and the Fallen. That's what they do.
yeah, language and
But
agriculture.
then on the other hand, in order for an archangel to believe he can become God, he believes something that isn't true. He believes he can have it better than heaven, which according to the rest of the Bible can't be true. He's sent on a mission out of heaven, which many of them are much of the time. That's not unusual. But he starts teaching things like how to make up the eyes, war tactics, how to splice plants, and things that he generally wasn't supposed to teach people, but is apparently common knowledge in heaven. So it seems to me that it could still be all satanic ideas that Lucifer carried out, including the idea that he could do better than heaven. So it still works as Satan, pretty much.
Definitely.
I think.
it's interesting that in the Greek myths, and I assume many other myths, that gods can be vindictive or shallow or vengeful, or they seem to have all the nasty characteristics many humans have. Yet in Christianity, it's
way worse.
Pardon me?
Way worse. I mean, like eating your sons so that they don't eventually grow up and kill you.
Oh yeah.
That's way worse than any human. You know?
Yeah. But cannibalism
So petty.
exists among humans, but
They get better.
Yeah.
But,
hey.
So anyway, so our view of our Christian God is that, well, he can get a little jealous sometimes, but for the most part, he's okay. Whereas with Zeus, you don't feel that way.
Name a horrible thing that Zeus does.
Let's see. Well, doesn't he? Well, he did the flood for very petty reasons. He
Constant infidelity.
He punishes people by turning them into wolves.
I'd have to know more of the story than just someone got turned into a wolf, or several people got turned into a wolf. I don't know what that means.
Transmogrification. It's a thing.
I understand the principal idea of changing a human into a wolf. That part I get. What I don't know.
Want context.
Yeah, I got no context to know why. Yeah.
Well, when Zeus is a rapist.
Right.
I've heard it said that the Holy Spirit is a rapist of Mary because she was a virgin and or a young woman unable to make a accurate decision, which young woman in that culture at that time would have meant something around 13.
Yeah, she seems a little underage. And if there are pictures of it, it would be child pornography today.
Yeah, I'm just glad it doesn't mean exactly what they think it means. That would be immoral. But
well, Zeus was insatiable. Zeus turned himself into things to seduce women all the time, and his wife was always catching him and getting mad at him or getting mad at his lovers. Or there's so many. It's almost like a running joke. It seems like in the mythology, like, oh, there goes Zeus again.
Yeah,
falling in love
Hera
with another
Zeus's
mortal.
wife. And she would punish the lovers all the time more than she couldn't really punish Zeus.
Right.
Is there any of these stories you guys know a lot of detail about?
Let's see.
Well, the one that I recently familiarized myself with today, because I was rereading the Prometheus stuff, was I forget the name, I'm afraid, but the young lady that Zeus turned into a heifer when Hera came and showed up. So Zeus went to go fornicate with this young lady, this human, and covered the earth with darkness and clouds. And Hera saw that the earth was covered in darkness and clouds and said, well, I better go see what Zeus is up to. So she went down there and found Zeus standing next to this heifer, who was this woman that he was consorting with, and he had just turned into a heifer to cover his tracks. Said to Hera, "Hey, I'm just hanging out with this cow here. Isn't this a beautiful cow?" And Hera said, "Well, yeah, it is. Why don't you give me that cow for my stables? It's just a cow, right?" And so Zeus had to allow Hera to take the cow, who then Hera cursed with a fly. She let the cow go. The woman was now permanently a cow, apparently, and was cursed with this gadfly that would bite her and follow her around constantly. And she was the mother, I think, eventually of Hercules. So she interacted with Prometheus, who said, "I know you're thinking about killing yourself because of this fly, but please don't do it, because eventually you have this great destiny ahead of you where the greatest hero that ever lived will be your son. And, by the way, that son will overtake Zeus one day." And that's when she was like, okay, I'm down. I'll definitely not kill myself if Zeus is going to get it in the end. So, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's sort of her role in it all. What do you think about that, Richard?
I just Wikipedia'd it. I don't even know how to say that. I just made up a new word. I just wikied it.
I think the cow's name was Thetis, right?
That's it. Thetis. You mentioned her earlier. She's a nymph, actually.
Wait, maybe I've got the wrong story here. I Googled Zeus and heifer.
Yeah.
That should get it.
Changed her into a white heifer. Hera persuaded Zeus to give her the heifer and sent Argus. Okay, this is the right story. It's the story you just told. Okay. I just want to make sure I got the right story before I sharing the screenings.
Absolutely.
A lot of scholars think that when there are, for example, battles between the Amazons and this or that, or the what are they called now? The horses. What are they called? The ones with human
Pegasus?
No, that's the horse with wings. I'm thinking of the horse body, but human upper half. My brain is, of course, not coming up with the appropriate word.
Centaur.
But, pardon me?
Centaur.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So there'll be a battle between the Amazon and the Centaur, and this is actually showing, is a reference to an actual real battle, which did not have Amazons and Centaurs, but they were sort of like logos for the regions they represent. And it's just endless.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You guys remember that last email I sent you, or maybe you didn't get a chance to read it? It was kind of late.
Geez, I don't know.
I sent you a list of stories we shouldn't talk about because I've already heard them from other religions.
Oh,
okay.
And I already found them justified within the Bible. That is to say, the same story.
Right.
And I'm sorry, the story of Io is one of them.
Story of Io. Which one is that?
That's the name of the lady that got turned into a heifer. Yeah.
Oh, so it wasn't Thetis. Okay.
So here's the really wicked, crazy part. The moon Io over Jupiter is properly named.
Mm-hmm.
The moon Io is Io, which is kind of creepy. And when Io is sent away, she is hidden by Argus. Is it Argus or Angus? Angus. The Cyclops, that is Jupiter with the eye in its forehead, or Goliath with the stone in its forehead.
Right.
And it's Heracles that frees Hermes, who goes and frees the beautiful woman. That's later on in her story.
It's Mercury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and Mercury is Hermes.
Right.
It's just another name for, and it's actually that planet is named properly as well.
Right.
Which is really weird.
I think Mercury is also famous for stealing holy oxen that belong to Zeus as well. I don't know if that fits into any narrative, though. Could just be another
I'd have
story.
to get more of the story, and maybe it does. I don't know. So let me read this real quick. Excuse me. Io in Greek mythology, daughter of Inachus, the river god of Argos, and the oceanic Malia, I don't even know what these words mean, under the name of Calathea. Io was regarded as the first priestess of Hera, the wife of Zeus. Zeus fell in love with her and, to protect her from the wrath of Hera, changed her into a white heifer. Hera persuaded Zeus to give her the heifer and sent Argus Panoptus, the all-seeing one, to watch her.
Huh.
That's the eyeball having guy right there. I guess it is Argus, not Angus. But anyway, later this guy, right? Oops, this guy right here. If I'm reading the story right, later he is slain, and he becomes the brightness of Zeus's thunderbolts. That is the awakening of mankind, or what we see. The all-seeing to watch her. Zeus thereupon sent the god Hermes, who lulled Argus. Zeus doesn't send Hermes. That's wrong. Hercules does. Anyway, it's only this in Britannica. This should be right. Who lulled Argus to sleep and killed him. Hera then sent the gadfly to torment Io, who therefore wandered all over the. Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
Cross the Ionian Sea.
Cross the Ionian Sea. This means a sea of time.
Sure.
Swam the strait that was thereafter known as the Bosporus, the meaning an ox ford or ox crossing. And at last reached, oh my gosh. At last reached Egypt. Of course they do. Where she was restored to her original form and gave birth to a Hephaestus. All right. Wow.
What a winding road.
I think she changes character mid-story right there, and Io becomes something else. Because this went from the sign of wormwood, a chunk of the moon, Io. That is the tormenting gadfly all over the earth, because fire and brimstone and sulfur smoke is nasty to human lungs. It went from there, crossing into the Ionian Sea, or crossing outer space. Thereafter known as the Bosporus, the Oxford, the place the ox crosses, which is so funny because of the heifer references and cow references all over the place. All right. Yeah.
Well, don't. I wouldn't fret over this Britannica selection having a mistake, because I can promise you that if you looked up this myth in any sort of scholarly work, they would mention that there are 11 different variations depending on where it's recorded. And slight changes of names or who did what. And the same basic story is there, but it won't be the same.
I wonder if all the variants are just more in-depth explanations under the reading frame I've already accepted. Because that's usually what happens when I look into, that story's not the same everywhere. It's just more details on the same thing.
Well, apparently the Cinderella story, for example, is all over the
Right.
place. There's a variation in China.
It's
The
very
Disney-fied
old.
version were all virgin. Again, I make the same mistake. The Disney-fied version of which we're all familiar. And
Cinderella is the eating of the bewitched apple. No, that's Snow White.
yes,
Cinderella is beat up by her stepsisters, and she's a half sister. She's got a half mother. She's got a stepmom, right?
yes.
Yes,
And the
stepmother.
father's not around anymore. I think he died.
Right. Yeah.
So
well,
she has no advocate.
She has a fairy godmother, though.
Oh, right. Bippity boppity boo.
Yep. With
Magic
the pumpkin
words,
and
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Richard found an amazing thing out of Leviticus. Do we have time to look over that? Or it doesn't really relate to what we're talking about now?
We're
We've got
almost at
another-
an hour now. I think we should go ahead and wrap it up rather than start something brand new.
All
That
right.
sounds good to me.
It's
I don't want to
reasonable.
fall asleep on you guys again.
That's okay. It's a compliment in a way. Means you're comfortable.
Yes.
That is true too.
Mm.
One of the proudest moments of my life was when I got good enough at driving home from high school that Mom would fall asleep in the car.
Sure.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That's awesome. My mother
That
still
is
white knuckles when I'm driving.
I once had my brothers and my dad wince and suck in air through their teeth because I was driving too fast up a ramp that led to a highway.
Oh,
And I looked down at the speedometer and I was doing about 30 kilometers an hour. Just I was doing absolutely nothing. They were
Crawling.
just nervous. I thought of me driving.
What is that, like 22 miles per hour?
yeah.
Let's see, 0.6 of 18. 18 miles.
Okay.
Well, I thought today was interesting. Although maybe a bit anticlimactic, since it really is the same story we go over anyway. But that's the thing that to me that's remarkable. Like to me, I've been looking around the world in a lot of different ways and finding this same narrative, and it's confirmation bias, but it also really does have a confirmation effect. I mean, I think sometimes I am reaching. I think sometimes when I look harder at something where I think I see it, it falls apart a little bit. But then other times it opens up, like today, pursuing this Io. Like Io was a small character in the Prometheus story, but we fleshed that out and found it again. And there's a fractal nature to this. So again, like I have a curiosity about how exactly, like with the mechanism of disseminating this throughout our stories as our human heritage. And, I'm fascinated to think about how far back it might go and
all the way.
All the way back, right?
I think it goes all the way back. Like if you take, what was it? The Celtic tradition of the Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, it's hard to get older than Celtic Druids. That's pretty darn long ago. Okay,
Definitely.
and what they did traditionally, when they didn't call it Christmas, of course, was they would hang a pine upside down. You go, well, that's a weird thing to do. Well, you don't want it touching the ground like it's sitting on something. You want it like it's sitting on nothing. So they'd hang it upside down, and that makes the way the limbs are arranged, it makes it more ball-shaped, by the way. And then you put, candles, and candles burn white, a whitish colored flame. So you put candles all over it, and you light them, and you have... if you did it traditionally, you'd have red thread and green thread, and you'd wrap one ball with green thread, and the rest of the balls that you wrapped would all be red. That is the emerald light around him who sits on the throne, the red spherical 24 elders and the beast around God's throne, all suspended on black thread so it looks like they're hanging from nothing.
Right.
Etc. And I mean, just everywhere.
Right. Do you think it's still coming through? I mean, besides you, obviously, but do you think the message
Revelation is a process that's constantly going on? Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
And there's a line in the Bible to support that. And in those days, old men will have visions and young men will dream dreams. I think I'm one of those old men who had a vision. I think that's what happened. I think it blows my brain out right out of the side of my head.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It really is.
Not that I wanted it. I didn't. But it happened anyway. So is revelation a continuing process over time? In no uncertain terms, every religion that addresses that topic says so. You could say in the Hindi tradition, the Bodhisattva spends time with a guru, and that guru reveals more to him.
Right.
I mean, there's 1,000 ways to say that.
Right.
He's the Bodhisattva. But still got stuff to learn.
Right. Awesome. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much. It was another great day.
And thank
chatting
you,
with you,
Richard and Mac. I enjoyed myself.
I enjoyed it
As
very
usual.
much as well, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thanks for continuing to do this. Thanks for continuing to be interested. For anyone who's been viewing and tuning in on a regular basis for this show, thank you all very much. And to anyone who watches it in the future, thank you. And I want you all to know that I truly look forward to the day that we're all great friends.